During a family vacation, my parents took my credit card and laughed. You won't need this anyway. Later, they booked a luxury resort with my money. When I confronted them, my dad smirked. It's just a small contribution to our happiness. That night, my bank alerted me. Thousands gone. Furious, I cut the trip short. The next morning, my mom called in tears, begging me to help. I never thought my own parents would betray me like this. Sure, we weren't the perfect family. My dad always had a selfish streak, and my mom had a way of brushing off his bad behavior like it was nothing. But I still believed, deep down, that they had my back. That no matter what, they wouldn't cross that line. I was wrong. It all started with a family vacation. Mom had been talking about it for months. Mason, you need to take a break, she kept saying. You work too hard. When was the last time you even took a vacation? She wasn't exactly wrong. I did work a lot. At 29, I was finally in a stable place financially. I had a solid job in marketing, my own apartment, and enough savings to feel secure. It had taken me years to get here, especially since I didn't have a safety net like some people did. My parents weren't the kind you could fall back on in hard times. If anything, I was the one they leaned on. That's why I hesitated. I knew a trip with them meant footing the bill for more than just myself. But after enough guilt-tripping from Mom and my younger sister, Violet, I finally gave in. So there we were, at the airport, waiting for our flight to Cancun. That's when my dad did something weird. He reached over, plucked my credit card out of my wallet, and chuckled. You won't be needing this. I snatched for it, but he pulled it away like it was some joke. Dad, give it back. He just grinned. Relax, Mason. It's for safekeeping. I frowned but let it go. I figured he was being his usual controlling self, trying to act like the head of the family even though he hadn't financially supported any of us in years. My mom and Violet laughed like it was all just a funny little moment. I told myself, whatever. We're on vacation. Just let it slide. That was my first mistake. The first few days were fine. The resort was beautiful. White sand beaches, infinity pools, endless drinks. One of those places that made you forget real life existed. I started to relax. Maybe this was a good idea after all. But then things got weird. We were originally supposed to stay in a standard hotel. Nothing fancy, just a decent all-inclusive spot. But suddenly, my parents were talking about an upgrade. I overheard them whispering about it at breakfast. My mom was practically giddy. Did you see the new suite? The ocean view? The private butler? She whispered. I told you it'd be worth it, Dad said smugly. I froze. I wasn't against an upgrade, but something felt off. I hadn't seen them pay for anything. That night at dinner, I asked, how much did this upgrade cost? Mom waved a hand. Oh, don't worry about it. Dad smirked. It's just a small contribution to our happiness. My stomach clenched. I pulled out my phone and logged into my banking app. Thousands. Gone. I stared at the numbers, my hands going cold. My savings. My emergency fund. My rent money. I shot up from the table. You used my money? Mom sighed like I was overreacting. Mason, don't make a scene. Don't make a scene? You drained my account. My voice was shaking. How did you even? Then I remembered. The airport. The credit card. I turned to my dad. You stole from me. He just laughed. I wouldn't call it stealing, he said. You make good money. You'll be fine. I could barely think straight. How much did you spend? Dad shrugged. A few thousand, maybe. A few thousand. My voice rose. Do you have any idea what you just did? That was my savings. Mom sighed dramatically. Oh, Mason, don't be so dramatic. We're family. 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 Like that made it okay? Like that made it not theft? I shoved my chair back. I'm leaving. My mom's eyes widened. Mason, don't be ridiculous. You can't just watch me. I stormed out of the restaurant, booked an early flight home, and was gone before the sun came up. I blocked their numbers, ignored their messages. They had taken everything from me. I was done, or so I thought. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my mom. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Her voice was shaking. Mason, please. We need your help. I hesitated. What happened? Then she dropped a bombshell. Your father's been arrested. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. For what? She sobbed. Fraud. Credit card fraud. My blood ran cold. Wait. My mind raced. You mean, my credit card fraud? She didn't answer. Just kept crying. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about me. They'd been scamming other people, too. I stood in my apartment, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles went white. My mother's sobs crackled through the speaker, but I barely heard them. My mind was spinning. My father had been arrested for fraud. Not just any fraud, credit card fraud. I swallowed hard. Mom, I said slowly, forcing my voice to stay steady. What exactly did Dad do? She asked in a shaky breath. It's all a big misunderstanding. Then explain it to me. A pause. Then, in a quieter voice, she admitted, they're saying he stole from other people too. My stomach clenched. Other people. This wasn't just about my money. I paced across my apartment, trying to wrap my head around it. How long has this been going on? I demanded. Mason, please. How long, Mom? Another pause. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, A few years. My entire body went rigid. Years? My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't help it. You're telling me Dad has been doing this for years, and you never said a word? She sniffled. It's not like that. He never meant to hurt anyone. I couldn't listen to another excuse. I need the truth, I said, cutting her off. How much money are we talking about? Another silence. Longer this time. Then she whispered, hundreds of thousands. A sick feeling crawled up my spine. This wasn't just some petty theft. My dad had committed serious fraud. And if he had been using my name, my accounts, my credit, I stopped pacing. I pulled the phone away from my ear and opened my banking app again, heart hammering as I scrolled through my accounts. I checked my credit report, then my email, and that's when I saw it. An email from my bank. Suspicious activity detected. I clicked it open. There were 3 new credit cards listed under my name. Cards I had never applied for. My breath caught. Mom, did Dad open accounts in my name? Silence. Then she whispered, Mason, I swear, I didn't know. I didn't believe her. I clicked through the email, scanning the charges. Thousands spent at luxury hotels, expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, flights. My father had been living off me, and I hadn't even known. Rage burned through me so hot I had to grip the counter just to stay upright. Mom, I said through gritted teeth, I need to know everything. Right now. She hesitated, then sighed. The police are saying he was running a scam, opening accounts in other people's names. He used yours because I actually have good credit. I finished, voice shaking. More silence. I let out a bitter laugh. That's why he took my card at the airport, wasn't it? He wanted to see if I'd noticed the charges, to see how much he could get away with. She sniffled again. Mason, please, you have to help us. Your dad could go to prison. Good. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Mason. She gasped like I had just slapped her. I clenched my jaw. Mom, I lost everything because of him. My savings. My financial security. My trust in my own family. And you're telling me this has been going on for years. He never meant to hurt you. I laughed, but it was hollow. Do you even hear yourself? He stole from me, Mom. That's not an accident. That's a choice. She kept crying, kept begging, but I wasn't listening anymore. I had one thought on my mind now. I needed to fix this. And if that meant turning my back on my family for good, so be it. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter, my pulse thudding in my ears as my mother continued crying on the other end of the line. I wanted to hang up. I should have hung up, but I needed answers. I forced myself to breathe. Mom, I said, voice strained but controlled. How bad is this? Her breathing hitched. They're saying your father could face 5 to 10 years. My stomach clenched. 5 to 10 years. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing a hand against my forehead. Who else did he do this to? She hesitated. I don't know. I exhaled sharply. Don't lie to me. More silence. Then, in a defeated voice, she said, Violet, too. My heart sank. What? Your sister's name was on some of the accounts. I gritted my teeth. My father hadn't just stolen from me. He'd stolen from my little sister, too. She was only 22, barely starting her life, and now she was wrapped up in this mess. I needed to talk to her. I ended the call without another word and immediately dialed Violet. It rang 6 times before she finally picked up. Her voice was quiet, almost shaky. Mason, are you okay? I asked. She let out a bitter laugh. No, not really. I sat down on my couch, running a hand through my hair. What did Dad do? There was a pause. Then she said, I found out last night. The police showed up at the hotel. Mom freaked out, started screaming about a mistake. But when they started listing off the charges, her voice cracked. I checked my accounts. Mason, my credit score is ruined. I have debts in my name I didn't even know about. I closed my eyes. He'd done it to both of us. Did Mom know? I asked, even though I already had my suspicions. Violet sniffled. I think she did. Maybe not everything, but she knew. She kept saying, I thought he was handling it, like she didn't want to admit it. I felt something in me harden. Are you still in Mexico? I asked. She let out a tired sigh. Yeah. Mom's trying to figure out how to get Dad out on bail. I don't even think she cares that he screwed us over. I clenched my jaw. Violet, listen to me. Do not give her a single dime. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. She sniffled again. I won't. I hesitated. Come home. There was a long pause. Then, in a voice so small it almost broke me, she whispered, I don't know if I can. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, she let out a shaky breath. Mason, I don't know how to go back to normal after this. I don't know how to pretend like we're still a family. I rubbed my temple. We aren't, I said, before I could stop myself. She didn't respond right away. Then, in a quiet voice, she asked, What are you going to do? I stared at the floor. My entire life had just imploded, and I still didn't have a plan. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't letting our parents get away with this. I sat there for a long time after Violet hung up, my phone still clenched in my hand, the screen dimmed. I should have been thinking of a plan, some way to fix this mess. But all I could do was stare at the wall, heart pounding, mind racing. My parents had ruined us. I wanted to believe my mom had just been in denial, that she hadn't really understood what Dad was doing. But deep down, I knew better. She knew. Maybe she hadn't swiped the cards herself, but she'd benefited. She'd looked the other way. And my dad? He didn't just take money. He stole time. Opportunities. Violet was supposed to be getting her life started, maybe buying her first car or moving out on her own. Now, she was buried in debt she never even signed up for. I ran a hand through my hair, breathing heavily. I had to act fast. The first thing I did was call my bank. It took an hour of frustrating back and forths, but I finally got a fraud claim started. The woman on the phone, a customer service rep named Laura, was polite but firm. "We'll investigate the charges," she told me. "But because this involves a family member, it could be complicated." I rubbed my forehead. Complicated how? She hesitated. When fraud is committed by someone close to you, especially if they had access to your personal information, banks sometimes categorize it as a domestic dispute rather than criminal fraud. That could affect your chances of getting reimbursed. I nearly dropped my phone. Wait, you're telling me my own father can steal from me, open accounts in my name, and I might be the one who gets screwed? "I know it's frustrating," she said, her voice gentle, "but we'll do everything we can." It wasn't enough. Next, I checked my credit report. The damage was worse than I thought. There were 4 credit cards I didn't recognize, 2 personal loans, and even a lease for a car. A damn car. He had completely hijacked my financial identity. I spent the next 2 days freezing my credit, filing identity theft reports, and calling every company that had a fraudulent account under my name. Each call felt like another slap in the face. "So, to clarify," a representative from one of the credit card companies said, "you're stating that these were opened without your consent?" "Yes," I gritted out. "But the address on the applications matches your parents' home?" "Because he stole my information." "I understand," she said, her tone infuriatingly neutral. "But because this was a family member, we'll need a police report to move forward with closing the accounts." A police report. It was like every road led back to the same question. Would I press charges against my own father? On the 3rd day, Violet called me again. "I'm coming home," she said. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Good. When's your flight?" "Tomorrow morning," she said. "Mom wanted me to stay. She keeps saying Dad needs us right now." I scoffed. "He needed us before he decided to rob his own kids." She let out a weak laugh. "Yeah, that's kind of what I told her." I frowned. "How did she take that?" "She got quiet," Violet said. "Then she told me I was being selfish." I swore under my breath. "Of course she said that. Do you think she really believes that?" Violet asked. "That we're the bad guys here?" I hesitated. "I think. Mom believes what she wants to believe. It's easier than facing the truth." Violet was quiet for a moment. Then, in a small voice, she said, "I don't think she's going to leave him." My throat tightened. I know. As much as I hated my father for what he did, I knew my mother was choosing to stand by him. She was willing to lose her own children if it meant keeping him. That was her choice. And I was making mine. The night before Violet's flight, my mom called again. I almost ignored it. But some part of me needed to hear what she had to say. I picked up. "What?" She let out a heavy sigh, like I was the one exhausting her. "Mason, I've been thinking." "Yeah," I said flatly. "That'd be a first." She ignored the jab. "I know you're upset. And I understand why." I waited. "But we need to be smart about this," she continued. "If you file charges, you're only hurting yourself." I frowned. "Excuse me." She launched into some speech about how pressing charges would ruin our family, how Dad would go to prison, how it would bring shame on all of us. "Think about your career," she pleaded. "If this gets out, people might not trust you with finances." I actually laughed. "You think my career is at risk? The only person who committed a crime here is Dad." She went silent for a second. Then, in a much colder voice, she said, "So you're really going to do this? Throw your own father to the wolves?" I gripped the phone tighter. "He did that to himself." She exhaled sharply. "You have no idea how hard this has been on me." I nearly threw my phone across the room. On her? She still couldn't see it. Still refused to accept that she'd stood by while he ruined us. "I don't know what to tell you, Mom," I said, voice hollow. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you let him destroy our lives." Before she could respond, I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an orphan. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. Every phone call, every betrayal, every new piece of evidence that proved just how deep my father had dug this hole. And my mother, she still refused to see it. I kept replaying her words in my head. "You have no idea how hard this has been on me." Like she was the victim. Like we were the ones hurting her. By the time morning rolled around, I was running on nothing but rage and caffeine. I picked up Violet from the airport. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her shoulders slumped. I hadn't seen her like this since we were kids, back when our parents' constant fighting would keep us up at night. As soon as she saw me, she dropped her bag and pulled me into a hug. I held onto her tightly. "You okay?" She gave a weak laugh. "Not really." I grabbed her suitcase and led her to my car. Did Mom try to stop you from leaving? Violet sighed as she buckled in. Oh yeah? She was livid when I told her I booked a flight. Kept saying I was abandoning them. I clenched my jaw. She's in denial. She's choosing denial, Violet muttered. Mason, I think she's going to use all of her money to bail Dad out. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Figures. Violet stared out the window. I don't get it. How can she still defend him after everything he's done? I shook my head. Because admitting the truth means admitting she's wasted her life on him. Violet didn't respond. We drove in silence for a while. Then, quietly, she asked, Did you press charges? I exhaled. Not yet. She glanced at me. Are you going to? I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I didn't know. For the next few days, Violet stayed with me. We went through all our finances together, untangling the mess our father had created. Calling banks, freezing accounts, filing disputes. It felt like trying to put out a wildfire with a cup of water. The worst part? It wasn't just about money. It was about everything we had lost. Trust. Stability. The belief that our own parents would protect us instead of destroy us. I had plans, Violet muttered one night, staring blankly at her laptop screen. I was going to apply for a car loan. Maybe move into a better apartment. And now? She laughed bitterly. Now I probably can't even get approved for a damn credit card. I swallowed the lump in my throat. We'll fix it. She sighed. How? Even if the banks clear some of this, it'll take years to rebuild my credit. I clenched my fists. Then maybe it's time to make sure Dad pays for this. She looked at me, eyes filled with hesitation. You mean? I nodded. I was going to the police. The next morning, I drove to the precinct. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring at the entrance. I knew once I did this, there was no going back. Pressing charges against my own father. It still didn't feel real. I pulled out my phone, hesitating. Then, before I could stop myself, I dialed my mother's number. She picked up immediately. Mason. Her voice was hopeful, like she actually thought I was calling to make amends. I ignored the knot in my stomach. Mom, I need to know one thing. She hesitated. What? If the situation was reversed, if I had stolen from him, would you still be defending me the way you're defending him? Silence. Then, in a low voice, she said, That's not the same. I closed my eyes. There it was. The confirmation I didn't even know I needed. She had made her choice. Now, I was making mine. I hung up. And then I walked into the police station. I stepped into the police station, my heart pounding, but my mind steady. I had spent my whole life making excuses for my parents, convincing myself that they weren't that bad, that my dad's selfishness was just part of who he was, that my mom's enabling was just her way of keeping the peace. But this was unforgivable. A receptionist at the front desk looked up at me. Can I help you? I tightened my grip on my phone. I need to report identity theft. Filing the report took hours. I sat across from Detective Carla Reynolds, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who had clearly seen her fair share of fraud cases. She took notes while I laid everything out: the stolen money, the fake accounts, the fraudulent loans, the fact that my father had used my credit history to fund his entire lifestyle. I handed over my bank statements, the fraudulent charges, even the email alerts I had ignored for months. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Your father's already in custody for similar crimes, she said, tapping her pen on her notepad. Adding your case to the charges could strengthen the case against him. I swallowed hard. And my mother? She studied me carefully. Do you believe she was actively involved? I hesitated. I don't know if she did anything herself, I admitted. But she knew. She let it happen. Reynolds nodded. Then she could be considered an accomplice. I let that sink in. Did I want to see both of them go down for this? I took a deep breath. I just want my life back. She nodded again, understanding. We'll investigate everything. In the meantime, I recommend you get legal representation. You'll want a lawyer to guide you through this process. I knew she was right, but I also knew this wasn't just about the legal side of things. I wanted them to understand what they had done to me. A week later, I got a call from my mother. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. Finally, I picked up. Mason, she sounded frantic. What have you done? I stayed silent, waiting. They're saying you filed charges. That you're working against your own family. Do you have any idea what this is doing to us? I exhaled through my nose. You mean what Dad did to us? She ignored that. Your father is devastated. I laughed coldly. Yeah? He seemed fine when he was spending my money. Mason, he thought he could pay it back. Don't, I snapped. Don't sit there and defend him. He didn't borrow from me. He stole. And you let him. She went silent. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had the power in the conversation. I didn't yell. I didn't let my emotions get the best of me. I just said, calmly, I hope you realize what you've lost, Mom. Because I'm done. And then I hung up. It took months for everything to play out. My fraud case, combined with the charges from other victims, built a strong case against my father. He ended up with a 6-year sentence for identity theft, fraud, and financial crimes. My mother? She wasn't charged, but she lost everything. Without my father supporting her with stolen money, she was forced to sell the house. She tried calling me, tried calling Violet, but we were both done. I moved forward. It took a while, but I repaired my credit. I worked with a lawyer, fought back against the fraudulent accounts, and slowly started rebuilding my financial security. Violet did the same. She moved into a new apartment, got a new job, and cut our parents out completely. One day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. From prison. It was from my father. I didn't even open it. I just tossed it in the trash and walked away. Because for the first time in my life, I was free.